3, 2, 1. It seems to be moving along. Seems to be moving along. Wait, no. Yeah, here we go. Jump back. Hey, look at that. Looks like we're live again. Streaming, sending data, streaming, sending data. Okay, now it's all up and running. You know what? I'm not gonna do a show. That's it. I've just decided. Fuck it. I mean, why bother at this point? All the trouble I go through trying to make this thing fly, and that I start off with a really good, what I think is sort of somewhere between a lecture and a TED Talk on the value of standing by your values, actually, if you value that in any way. Nah, screw it. I'll do a show. Welcome to Al Sparks Megaworldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Let's just pretend we started right now. Shit, I'll just throw in we'll do the launch page again. I'll throw in some music or something like that. We'll, what do we throw in for theme song? We'll do this one.
Turn up the radio, let the sparks ignite.
Know what I'm talking about?
Sparks leading the charge day and night.
You damn straight. Okay, so there we go.
I got my swag on low. I'm a diaper superstar. Messing up the schedule, taking it too far.
That's right. Or we could probably just do this for JD Vance theme song.
I love that feeling. Zipper hoods have got the goods. Owie, owie, oh. Butts and thongs and vests and thongs. Whoa, I love that feeling. Zipper hoods have got the goods. Owie, owie, oh. Boing, boing, dooby-doo. You know what I wanna do. Yay. Boing, boing, dooby-doo.
So,
you know what I wanna do.
All right. So, yes, it does say butt stuff at the end of that song. That's not okay. I'm not saying that that's JD's theme song. I'm just saying it could be in a world with less heaviness in it, where people are just allowed to be themselves. All right. I'm pretending the whole beginning of the show was an anomaly, and we're gonna start there. Fingers crossed, we'll get through this swimmingly, and. So, hi, chat room. There you are. Let's start. We're gonna start from scratch. Let's see if hey, there it is. Look at that. It's coming through. Excellent. Thanks. Butt stuff and soft sofas. It's very JD Vance. Absolutely. A little more cushion for the pushing. That's what That's what couch sex is all about. And we're not here to yuck anybody's yum. That's the one good thing about being a Democrat, baby. Sorry, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. You get to be who you are, man. Just as long as you're not hurting anybody else, and whatever you're doing with is consensual, and they're an adult, because it's kind of crucial when you're talking about the Trump crowd. So here's what I was saying before the world shut down, and welcome to the show and whatever. This will be a whole new show starting from scratch. We'll just begin as if. All right. I insist. I'm telling you. Don't make me. Don't make me. All right, so here we go. I think everybody around Trump and in MAGA world that works in the support structure around it, like in media, not the hosts of the show, but everybody behind the scenes hates Trump's guts. And this is my proof. Every time they choose a picture for a thumbnail, or every time they frame on him, I'm not saying every picture of him. I'm sorry. I should have put this up as well. There will be a bunch of nunt in these images, so consider yourself warned. Yeah, ick. But it seems like they are literally picking pictures based on making him look as scummy and scary as they possibly can. Like everywhere I look. Now, a couple of things. And speaking of scummy and scary, what the fuck is going on here? Maha Civil War is this is what we're using AI for. Okay, sure. Also, JD Vance is American preachiness is over. JD Vance, America is done telling other countries how to live. First of all, we don't do that, by the way, most of the time. I mean, these guys can't talk. That's why American preachiness is over, because they got nothing to preach about. These guys don't stand for what America stands for. So how the fuck would they preach about it? Of course, we can't castigate other countries for who their leaders are and the shit that they do when you've got this corrupt motherfucker running things and this dipshit venture capitalist, bringing up the rear. So this is I guess the end of American exceptionalism is what we're talking about. So let's grab a slice of this and we'll see.
We welcome to the program the Vice President of the United States and somebody who I think has a presidency in his future.
Yeah, of the Rotary Club or whatever.
JD Vance. Welcome to the program, Mr.
No, he doesn't. I'm just telling you. Nope.
President.
Glenn, how we doing?
I'm great. What an amazing few days the president has had. First, with all of the foreign wins before he left.
Oh yes, the foreign wins. You mean the deal to not make a deal?
With the wars, and everything that
the wars and everything.
State Department and Marco Rubio's doing, and now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think Glenn is still under the misapprehension that we had anything to do with the Indian-Pakistan ceasefire that lasted all of 4 fucking hours.
Oh, this speech, I think the Riyadh speech is historic.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, historically, most American presidents don't suck up to monarchical rulers that throw reporters into wood chippers and wish they could be them in front of the world in the most lazy, embarrassing, suck-up way possible. Yeah, it was historically shameful. Sure.
So many levels.
So many levels.
How would you describe what's going on in the Middle East this week?
That's not fair, because he can only describe it as absolutely positive. You know what I mean? It's like asking me to describe my show. I'm going to tell you, it's the greatest live stream in the history of live streams. And if you don't subscribe, it's nothing wrong with me. It has nothing to do with the quality of my show. It's what's up with you. That's your problem. I don't know why you don't want to do it. It's a personal failing that you're going to have to come to terms with at some point in your life.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Glenn, about that particular speech. I mean, when I listened to it, and I obviously knew a little bit about what the president was going to say.
A little. When you listen to it, what do you got? Is there a podcast of all of his speeches for you?
It changed a little bit, I would say, over the last couple of days. But the core message is very simple, that America wants not to remake the world in America's image. We don't.
No, our president wants to be like a sheikh with billions of dollars and a iron fist control over his population like Kim Jong-un. We're sick of telling other people that democracy's the way. We don't even believe that.
Force our allies to adopt our exact form of government.
We don't force our allies to adopt our exact form of government. Otherwise, their leaders would be stupid, doddering fake billionaires as well.
We actually want to be in the business of shared interest and shared economic cooperation. And so long.
Oh, so how about you try that in the Senate and in the House? No, sorry, that's a blood feud. My bad.
You're not trying to kill anybody, and so long as you're interested in building wealth for your citizens and working with America, then America's open for business. And I think that's...
Yeah, that first sentence, the whole, long as you don't want to kill anybody. The Qataris have been the conduit by which Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah have received most of their Iranian funds. The leaders of Hamas live in a fucking resort in Qatar. So maybe don't suck up to those people? I mean, you might even have a point about the Saudi royal family as it changes hands, that no change like that happens overnight. And so it's going to be a bumpy fucking ride going from what they used to be like to what they probably will be like in the future as the youngins come up and all that kind of stuff. God knows we've been going through a similar such thing, but there's not going to be a pancake flip in Iran, for example. That's going to be ugly before it gets good, right?
Very important signal to send to the world. You know, the Obama administration economist Larry Summers had a very smart point a few years ago. He said, you know, when the Chinese show up in the developing world, they show up with a bag of money. When Americans show up in the developing world, they show up with a lecture. And if
Bullshit. Fuck you. No, we don't. We show up with a bigger bag of money and a lecture. When China shows up, they show up with a bag of money that you owe them plus the property or whatever that they were supposed to help you build. Also, depends on where you're showing up. If we're going to give you this money, you got to do something for it. You can't just, we're not going to give you this to fucking spend on murdering your enemy. That's not the point. This is for roads, right? Yeah, it's totally for roads. You sure? Yes. Okay. Chinese show up like, here, take this. Can you do those people that you were killing? Can you finish killing them so that we can build an airfield?
you know, given a choice between a lecture and a bag of money, you're going to choose the bag of money
from the same people that shut down USAID, which was based on the bullshit that apparently all we do is drop money bombs on everybody.
Yep. Step of the way. I think what the president is saying is that era of American preachiness and American.
So what are we going to do? We're not going to lecture anybody anymore. We're going to be handing out bags of money. The fuck?
Telling other countries how to live their lives. That era.
And also not helping other countries live their lives.
Over. And I think it's a very important point for the Middle East. It's a very important point for the whole globe. And, you know, in some ways, only President Trump could have made that argument at this point in time.
Are we stopping with the bags of money, too?
I think we're stopping with both. But
right. So what leverage do we have?
We are really looking at economic cooperation, you know, in Africa, for example.
Yes, in Africa, where they can cooperate with us. We can buy their natural resources and they can dig it out of the ground for slave wages and give it to us. That's cooperation, isn't it?
Well, Glenn, you have American diplomats sent by the Biden administration who are telling very conservative Christian African countries that they need to fly the LGBTQ flag,
right.
But they're not engaging in any economic arrangement where, you know, the Africans have critical minerals that we need. They have other industries that we could be participating in.
Right. So his problem is too much time, like when we're doing infrastructure loans and those kind of things through the IMF, which we are, the United States is the greatest contributor to the IMF. And that's where most of these African funds go through. So the bags of money that he's talking about don't come straight through the United States. They go through the IMF because there's a structure by which that money can be doubled and tripled by other countries kicking into it. And so there are standards by which you will get that money. But his problem is we're not pilfering these countries. His problem is roll in there, buy whatever they're selling, no matter how you get it out of the ground, or who fucking picks the cotton in the case of China, or who the fuck, you know, breaks their fingers digging cobalt out of the ground for electronics. Nobody gives a shit about that. We got the money, they got the stuff, pay for it, and don't give a shit. And so the LGBTQ flag that he's talking about is at embassies and federal buildings. And the idea that we have, this might shock people, women even working along with people in the LGBT community who work in our embassies overseas, and the growth of that social movement is healthy to their lives and safety while they're there. You know what? Fuck it. If they use, who gives a shit, JD, if they fucking kill kids, wait till their bodies stiffen from rigor mortis, bust their fucking skulls open and use their head as a shovel. As long as we get the cobalt, is what he's saying.
Could be partnering on, and I think that's the bags of money point. It's not that we're going to give them money, but that we could have some shared economic relations with a conservative African country where we wouldn't want to tell them how to live their lives. We would actually just want to enter into a partnership with them, and that's, again.
Why would you want to enter in a partnership with them if there are other options? The idea is there's 20 countries here that we can be in partnerships with. We would prefer, we only need to have deals with 5 of them. We'll do the ones where they're not throwing gay people off of fucking roofs. How about that? That's where you have the partnerships. So these guys can either make the deal or they can go, and change what, socially their structure, or at least attempt to move into modern human life in this millennia. Or we can take our money, our bag of money, someplace else. That's the lecture they're talking about. Jesus.
Big change. It's a big shift, but it's an important shift from a very dumb American foreign policy to a very smart one that I think is going to benefit this country for the next generation.
So what J.D. Vance, you had a horrible face. You have horrible body odor. Horrible bowel syndrome. Who gives a shit? What J.D. Vance is saying is that if there's a country out there, let's just say, that kills, lets Christians be rounded up and murdered. If they have rare earth minerals, we can look the other way. That's what he's saying. If our government's not killing them. The Rapid Strike Force is killing them. This other group over here is killing them, and we can't do anything about it. They're off in this corner fucking around. So if they kill if they round up a bunch of Yazidis or Christians or something like that, that's not our business really. Don't tell us that we have to go hunt these guys down or stop them. You want the minerals or not? And that's what J.D. Vance is saying. J.D. Vance is saying that economics are more important than the ideology of the United States or our own moral salvation. And that's why J.D. Vance is not a Christian at all. Not in the truest sense of the word, not in any sense of the word, and why he is part of the Peter Thiel eugenics movement, where the world is full of useless eaters, and if these fuckers are going to kill each other, just stand back, or if anything, you probably should just help them move it along faster, and then make a deal with the strong man in that, and then eventually, if you need more than he's willing to sell you, then fucking kill him. Hit him with an airstrike. That's what they're talking about.
TV show, it was a game show when I was a kid called the $20,000 Pyramid, and they would allow you.
Wasn't it 25? $25,000 pyramid, wasn't it? Like maybe you could go on like the $25,000 pyramid and make it like that way, maybe win it.
To say pass, and you could skip the subject of the question. And I give you that. We're playing the $20,000 pyramid here. I
mean, do you want to bring up Egypt while we're talking about this? Whoops, hold on a second. Just show the photos. God damn it. Yeah, here you go. Why is this? So it's 25,000. It's 25,000. It's always been 25,000. This isn't inflation. It was always 25,000, and it was not in the 60s when Glenn Beck was a child. Not at all. It's 25,000. It was 25. It's not the $20,000 pyramid. Maybe it was when he was a child. Maybe it was on the radio. It assumed the pyramid.
I look at the reaction of your speech in Europe. Then I see the moves that they're making. I see the new...
Oh, you mean the ones where they redid that election in Romania and you got all pissed off about it because you were like, you shouldn't be telling people whether or not they should allow Russia to fuck around in their elections or not and redo their elections. That's just wrong. And shutting down speech just because it's a bunch of agents provocateur that Russia sent into your country in the middle of the night to pretend that they're your citizens and run around in fucking masks, pretending that they actually live there and starting fires in the middle of a protest so that the protesters get shot. You shouldn't be doing anything about that. And what did Russia do? Fuck you. And fuck the AFD and fuck this new Romanian dickhead. It was fixed and we're remedying it.
Minister of Canada, who was the architect of the Glasgow Financial Accords. And I'm not sure that we're on the same page anymore.
Hey, asshole. You wrote a book called The Great Reset about the inevitable fall of the dollar and the U.S. and the market, and that the elites around the world were planning it. And you haven't yet put together that if indeed any of that was true, Donald Trump is a crucial part of that. What does he do with all those fucking unsold books? / all of them. Is that what we see every time they show like a bonfire graphic? Is he just burning copies of his own piece of shit book that turned out to be a bunch of blather?
We can be friends with everybody, but
No.
I'm not sure we're walking down the same path anymore with those countries.
You're right. We are not walking down the same path with Canada and Western Europe and the UK. Trump wants to walk down the path with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin and MBS and fucking Kim Jong-un. Yes, it's a different path, asshole. Yes. And that's the problem.
Well, it worries me, Glenn, because, look, there are certainly some economic benefits and friendships that we can have with a lot of our, sort of Western European and obviously our Canadian friends. But in Western Europe in particular, my view on this, Glenn.
In particular. So Eastern Europe's okay. Interesting distinction.
Our relationship with Western Europe is always going to be unique. America, of course, started as an English colony.
What? Where do you hear this? Nuh-uh. Okay, first of all, we didn't actually. This might be a whole thing about is Jesus the last Jew or the first Christian or that whole chicken and the egg moment that America doesn't begin until it ends the British colonies that were here, that literally America is the breakaway. So it didn't start, it started the second it started as no longer a colony. And so it started on the death of a British colony. How about that? We'll just leave it at that.
We're always going to have a special.
And so it started on the death of a British colony. How about that? We'll just leave it at that.
We're always going to have a special relationship with the United Kingdom.
Yeah, but not because of that, you motherfucker. We always miss home. Daddy.
38,000 troops. If we see Germans doing something that is incredibly offensive to America's values, I think Americans are going to recoil a little bit at that. And, I went to Germany very recently, very briefly, Glenn, just to, visit the troops.
Just to go to a downstairs bar someplace, some place that perhaps has, I don't know, zipper suits on rental. Welcome to Germany. Hello, JD Vance. So glad you could be here with us. And the nice thing about, German bars like this, we don't wear all the bright rainbow colors. We like the black, we like everyone wears small glasses. And then every so often, a man comes in and he goes, now, what shall we talk about?
And say hello. And
or say hello. I think that's the, yeah.
Hearing from Germans, even during that very brief visit on the ground, things that they were worried about free speech policies in their own country. Well, if we've got 38,000 troops there and we're living amongst the Germans, we're literally defending their country, I think you can expect Americans to at least express.
Okay, hang on. The base that we have in Germany is not there to help with German sovereign safety. This is not like Okinawa or fucking the base we have in South Korea, you asshole. Most of that place is a fucking hospital for the other shit that we do in the rest of the world. Like the vast majority of that base, its function, besides being a landing strip and a waypoint, yeah, Ramstein is there largely so we can fly in wounded soldiers. It's a NATO junction base, which he wants shut down. So let's be honest. What they're trying to do is, this is a build-up narrative. Like, Germany's not for free speech anymore, so what's NATO even about? We should get the fuck out of there. Right, Russia?
Some negative opinions about some of the free speech policies they're seeing in Europe. And Glenn, you know this as well as anybody. Things that start in Europe sometimes.
Also, U.S. service people are not supposed to be involved in politics, period. They're there to serve their purpose, but there's no way those rules would apply to any of our soldiers over there in their own internal communications or any of that stuff. If they decided to go on a fucking German radio show and be anti-gay or anti-woman or like anti-Semitic, you know, they would be in deep shit here, not just because fucking Germany doesn't like it.
Come over to America in the same way that things that start in America sometimes make their way to Europe. The kind of social media censorship that we've seen in West
We haven't seen any.
Europe, it will
Yeah, no. They don't have rules like we do. We have free speech. They don't.
in some ways already has made its way to the United States. That was the story of the Biden administration silencing people on social media. So,
by the way, that happened under Trump primarily, and they didn't silence people. Bullshit. The TOS violations are what get you silenced. Except now, by the way, now Elon Musk, maybe that's what he's talking about. Maybe he's talking about like that Elon Musk is jealous of the censorship that they get to do in Europe. So he's doing it himself. He's personally choosing who to censor. Just like he can apparently personally decide whether your car runs or not if you have a Tesla.
we're going to be very protective of American interests when it comes to things like social media regulation. We want to promote free speech. We don't want our European friends telling social media companies that they have to silence Christians or silence conservatives.
Right.
And
they're not. They don't. I mean, they have, those countries have those rules. And if those companies, those social media companies, want to do business in those fucking countries, then they got to play by their rules. Or those people could use a fucking VPN and pretend to be Americans and work around that firewall, or vote to change it in their own fucking country. But by the way, didn't this start off with America's done preaching to the rest of the world? And what he's saying is, if you don't have the same free speech rules, which is an ideology of the United States that I happen to support, but is unique to this fucking place, that if you don't participate in that, especially in terms of the level of offensive stuff, not in the support for other stuff, which you can kill all the DEI language in the government you want. But if you say it on social media and it's offensive in that regard, they have to do it in those countries. Or what? We're going to remove our military base? That sounds exactly like what you're accusing the Biden administration of doing.
I think there is going to be that friction over the next 10 years. It's not that we're not friends,
Right.
but there are going to be some disagreements you didn't see 10 years.
Yes, there is. Like, for example, in Germany, they don't let you post swastikas online. I can't imagine why they're particularly sensitive about it, but, apparently it's a big deal, whatever. Whereas Elon Musk thinks there's not enough of those, swastikas, hook crosses on fucking Twitter, right? By the way, this isn't the end of American preachiness. This is simply a new version of it. He's just preaching filth. He's preaching authoritarianism, proto-fascism, and all that stuff. He's saying you should be forced to carry hate speech on your stuff because we don't police it over here. That's what he's saying. While, by the way, striking language about how people are allowed to address people, including pronouns in the fucking government, right? Free speech, except if you want to be called she, her, then that's a violation of my sense of reality. So therefore.
Yeah.
So, they have decided they're not going to pursue being a leader in AI, but they're going to make all the rules.
This, by the way, this is his fixation now, in case you don't know. There's like European rules on AI, and he talked about it on one of his other videos yesterday or the day before about rules that they're setting for what free speech can do. It's more like a treaty than anything else, but it's largely unenforceable. It's more like a driving document. But he's very fixated on the idea that somehow they're going to destroy AI by not allowing it to be used in Europe, which ultimately, it's not going to change how it is used in the United States. And if you access it when it's got a warning on the website that it can say whatever it wants or whatever, it doesn't apply to those rules. You can't establish your rules internally and then use someone else's tool. It's like saying a wrench can be used as a bludgeon, and we have outlawed all bludgeoning weapons, therefore you're not allowed to have a wrench. Instead of, if you buy a wrench and use it as a bludgeon, you are uniquely the problem. Instead of doing that, he's saying that there's this like overarching thing. Well, ultimately, all that will mean is that they're all behind. Like Europe will be behind in AI because of the governors that they will put onto the actual service, the same way China is. That's why China's AI systems are largely dead in the water as far as the educational aspects of it, the ability for the public to use it, because it's going to have firewalls within it, just like the internet over there. So if not more draconian.
And are you that we are in a winning position here on AI? It is advancing so rapidly, and the things I hear that come out of China, it's either no, they're way behind. It's all a paper tiger, or they're way ahead. Where are we, do you think, on AI and AGI?
Well, I think that we're ahead, Glenn, but nobody who says that we're way ahead should be believed. In artificial intelligence, 6 months is a lifetime.
Yeah.
12 months is a generation. We're probably.
He does know that a lifetime is longer than a generation, right? Probably not.
12 months, maybe 2 years ahead of where the Chinese are when it comes to critical hardware, when it comes to the necessary infrastructure, when it comes to the engineering talent. But that is not very far ahead at all. And we're really going to have to invest a lot in developing America's next generation of scientists. Glenn, we're going to have to make sure that our hardware companies, that we stop regulating them to death, that our energy infrastructure, that we stop regulating it to death.
Yeah, neither of those things is happening, especially hardware companies. The fuck are you talking about? The only regulations that they actually have right now is you can't sell it to fucking China. What, honest to God, what the fuck? What regulations is he talking about? What's the big snag that Apple is having to come to the fucking Congress and going, hey, can you take the bit out of our mouth? We can't race as fast as we want to. You're holding us back on our development of fucking chips. Honest to God, what the fuck is he talking about?
Because if we allow the Chinese to catch up, we may never, ever have an edge on China in this space again. And I think a lot of people, artificial intelligence, it's a chat bot. It's something that maybe helps a college student write a paper. No. The artificial intelligence that I'm worried about, Glenn, is the kind of intelligence that helps them develop next generation weapons, that helps their rockets and missiles hit their target 99% more accurate than the weapons that aren't using artificial intelligence.
Yeah, but we already have that anyways. We already have that now. And they arguably have targeting and tracking systems. We've had targeting and tracking systems with an accuracy of like 85 feet from across the fucking world since the early 90s at the latest, if not before that. That's when we knew of it. So they probably had it in the mid 70s.
There are just massive defense technology implications of this. That it's kind of like, what would have happened.
Oh, dear. I don't know what he's going to say. I don't know what he's going to say right now, but it's going to be fucking stupid.
The English army had fought the Americans in the Revolutionary War, and we had M16s, and they had.
Yeah, you know what? I take it back. It's exactly like that. What a great analogy. Brilliant. God damn. Imagine if in the Revolutionary War, if we had M16s and we were still trying to load muskets, it'd be like that. No, it wouldn't.
Of this, that it's kind of like.
Kind of.
What would have happened if English army had fought the Americans in the Revolutionary War and we had M16s and they had muskets?
Yeah.
We don't want to meet on a battlefield of the future and have.
Hold on. We still would have won. Wait. I thought he meant that the British had muskets. Right? That would, yeah. We won anyways. We both had muskets and we still kicked their ass. I guess it would have been over sooner, right? Wait a minute. What the fuck?
The weapons that aren't using artificial intelligence. There are just massive defense technology implications of this, that it's kind of like, what would have happened if the English army had fought the Americans in the Revolutionary War and we had M16s and they had muskets. Yeah. We don't want to meet on a battlefield of the future and have, we have the muskets and the Chinese have the M16s.
Sure. Totally. Is this what they call bro science? Is this bro history? Jesus.
AI.
He's been watching the final countdown. Totally. We're leaving together. All right.
Critical part of staying ahead of the communist China.
But still it's farewell. Sorry, that's going to be stuck in my head. You said, it's the final countdown.
And it's something, look, we're very focused on. We've got a great guy in David Sachs of the administration who's leading the
Jesus. No, we don't.
Effort, but it's full pedal to the metal, Glenn. We have to constantly be innovating and staying ahead of the game. We can't follow the European lead of regulating. We want America to innovate, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
I spoke to the president a couple of weeks ago, and he, I was going to ask him about nuclear energy, and he just volunteered. I said, what about energy with AI? And we went into saying, we're talking about making them their own utilities. They can build it. We're going to clear, even if they want to make nuclear power plants. That didn't.
Yeah, but he was primarily focusing on energy, on coal plants.
Print. I mean, I thought that was one of the bigger headlines of my lifetime, and nobody seemed to pick that up or care about that. And
that's because he bullshits so much. Nobody, and there's so many other problems he's created. Yes, Joey Tempest is awesome, and he did cause me trouble in high school though, because my prom date was a very pretty girl who looked exactly like him, and it was awkward. Just saying. Although I will say it worked out kind of, because my next girlfriend after that I dated for a while, because my prom date wasn't really a girlfriend, we were set up just for prom, was named Carrie, so that works. When lights go down, I see no reason for you to cry. All right.
We do lose.
We've been through this before, in every time. I mean, come on.
If we don't have these power plants, what are we doing to accelerate? I mean, they need 99% of our power by 2028. 99% of the power that's currently being made.
Yep, I guess everybody in the red state's got to die, Glenn. That's the only thing. But a bunch of people are using energy that we need to give to AI, and it's a bunch of these fucking trailer park assholes. So I guess Trump's right. They just all got to go. It's fine. We can build 30 nuclear plants in the next 3 years, sure.
We need power plants.
Yeah, you're a smart guy, Glenn, because I don't know what else the president said during that interview, but I doubt it was as important as that point. Because
nothing.
This is
well, that I agree with. There was nothing in that interview. Yeah,
a critical issue.
I had that record on vinyl too.
And you ask what we've done. We've had Lee Zeldin at the EPA and all of our environmental folks look at how we cut through the red tape and make it
how we get rid of all this environmental protection agency bullshit
possible, because the market would do this, right? These companies would like to do this, but it's the environmental bureaucrats that have told.
Yeah, with all this, you know who I blame? It's all those fuckers downstream. You know what I mean? Because they don't want birth defects, so they don't want their kids to fucking glow in the dark. That's the issue. I blame them.
You can't really attach a power plant off grid to a pure artificial intelligence hardware facility. We're tearing down those regulations and making it possible again. And then, of course, Glenn, part of this is not just building these facilities, but is powering them with.
Well, because the legal issue is of, let's go beyond this. What's the legal right? What legal right do you have a power plant on your property? Once you allow that, it's not part of the electrical grid, but you can build your own. If somebody decides, hey, I live in fucking Wyoming, I can get access to a little bit of uranium. If I just dig around and find some, I can get a fucking lead suit off of eBay. I'll just dig up some of my own, and I'll make my own fucking garage nuclear reactor to run as a power plant on my property. Right? What? And if you come to me and go, hey, you can't do that. Why not? They can. But that's a business. I give a shit. Their property, their power plant. My property, my power plant. Get fucked. Right? That's one of the other reasons, like, they don't want, like, nuclear classified as a renewable. It technically is, because it turns into something else. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't burn out. The waste becomes something else that you could technically use for other things, namely a nuclear weapon, which is why we chose the fuel that we chose back in the day, because it's part of the process to make a weapon. It doesn't go away, so therefore it is technically renewable, I guess. And isn't everything renewable on a infinite timeline? But the idea that you could build that on your property and counts as renewable energy. You're allowed to do solar, wind, nuclear, geothermal, hydropower, right? You can do that on your own. If you have a fucking creek in your backyard and you set up a bunch of fucking, like a little energy generator across it using the current of the stream, you're allowed to do that, right? Yes, some kid absolutely already did that. Hold on. One of the weirdest things, okay. Guy built personal nuclear reactor. So, yeah, there he is. David Hahn. There he was. Yeah. Except, okay. Scroll this down. It's 2008. Man makes nuclear reactor in garage. A 22-year-old man from Rockwall, Texas, attempted to build a small-scale nuclear power reactor in his garage. Representatives from the police, the FBI, and the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission removed equipment from the home at the request of the man's parents. The FBI said the criminal charges against the man will not be filed, as he had not actually done anything illegal. Because he didn't hook it up to anything yet. Was the thing. He was running like little devices off of it, but it would be able to power the house. Once he hooked it up to the house, that was when it'd be illegal. They didn't arrest him, but they were able to take his shit. Yeah. And he goes, well, here's the, this is the part where he goes, he claimed to have acquired uranium and that the background radiation at his home had doubled. Representatives from the Rockwall Police, Federal Bureau of Investigation, the U.S. Nuclear, removed equipment from the home at the request of the man's parents. He was found to have been experimenting with Americium-241, which is used in smoke detectors, and natural uranium that he bought on eBay. Tests found no abnormal levels of radiation at the home. The man said, people do it at universities all the time. It's just not that usual that someone does it outside of a university, which is true. The FBI said that criminal charges against the man will not be filed. He didn't do anything illegal. The man commented, they're just doing their job. That's their job, to come and check on stuff like that. When they left, it had been deemed that, everything was within reason. He said he was not planning any similar experiments, adding, I think I'll keep it cool for a while. Well, guess what, buddy? You're up. Yeah. And that, by the way, there are plenty of people, that dude wasn't fucking, rich. Right? Imagine if he had, the backing of somebody like Peter Thiel. Right? It's Timu uranium. That's Americanium.
The fuel that we need. And the president, you hear this term, all of the above. The president has really said we're in all of the above. We're reducing regulations on coal. We're empowering.
Wait, I should be up. Okay. Obviously, I'm being hit by the. Yep, I'm up on everything according to this. It says I'm on Twitch and I'm streaming. Is it because I'm talking about how to build a nuclear I just mentioned the idea that you could make a nuclear reactor in your garage, and that's what shut me down.
Natural gas.
It's yeah, that was 17 years ago, and imagine if it was now. Now imagine it's same guy, a little less information, but he's got ChatGPT. Mm-hmm.
Petroleum, obviously nuclear.
What the fuck? Obviously, you could burn copies of Glenn's book.
Like, this is a president who said all power that we have, we need to put into this this prospect. And Glenn, one more important point on this. If you look
Oh, it's prospector. I see. That's why they threw it up there. Yeah.
chart of electricity generation, the People's Republic of China versus the United States. 20 years ago, we blew them out of the water. Right now, the PRC is producing about 3 times as much electricity as we are, and we flatlined over the last 20 years. That's innovation, that's development, that's got to...
No. That would simply be having light bulbs. That would simply be putting light bulbs in homes across China. The process of the last 25 years of just electrifying villages would explain that. The reason we flatlined is because until AI came along, we were producing enough energy to keep all of our lights on. The idea that there were like rolling blackouts in California, this bullshit that they keep telling is nonsense.
Glenn, we have got to be producing more power for the next wave of innovation. It's maybe the most important part of the puzzle.
So I did a show last night on.
Yes, and we all caught it. Where it was very exciting.
Just that a reset is coming. It's inevitable.
Oh my God, he's still trying to sell this bullshit book. Yes, it's inevitable that a reset is coming, and it will happen while Trump is president, and he's going to, yeah.
That a reset is coming, and we have to hurry, cut the budget, onshore, fix the tariff or the trade deficit, or we don't really have a chance of doing anything. And as I was looking at, we ran 3 different models through
Gibberish.
AI, and
we ran 3 different models through AI. You mean you described the problem 3 different ways?
All came back with the same stuff, and we're doing
because you were asking the same question with very little word variance, with the numbers being the same. Now I got to watch this stupid shit.
The president is doing those things, except for the cutting of the budget. I mean, Congress won't even pass the Doge cuts. When will the White House become...
Yeah, it's the Democrats, so I blame the Democrats. They won't even make those cuts. The Democrats, I blame the Democrats who are not in power and who are not responsible for freezing these cuts as they go through committee. Glenn is all up in AI. AI, he is more than any other person. He talks about it because he uses it like mad over there. They are trying, they've been, him and Peanut Butter Dickhead are both, they're like, oh my God, I can fire so many people if I figure out how to use this quickly.
Strong on you.
Oh, asshole, by the way, for the record, Dickhead, listen to me. It's not even that they're not making the cuts, the Doge cuts. It's that the Doge cuts have been swamped by excess spending by Trump. He just promised the troops a raise, and a tax cut. So you're arguing with fucking Santa Claus, you fucking lunatic.
Must cut the spending.
Yeah, great question, Glenn. And I will.
That wasn't a question. It was a statement.
The big, beautiful bill text just came out last week. That's going to change a lot from now until then. We've already had
Well, then the text hasn't come out.
Conversations with House leadership that we want to see some more significant efforts to rein in spending here. The president also believes, Glenn.
And by here, he means Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
And I think he's right about that if you cut the trade deficit or you raise revenue through tariffs, that you actually go a long way to making the country on a more sustainable fiscal pathway as well. But you're right, you can't do it without cutting domestic spending.
Right.
We're going to have to do it and get serious.
Yeah, that's why we're having our first $1 trillion Pentagon budget ever. Because they're setting an example for you and me.
About it.
I mean, I think
we're making that as clear to congressional leaders as possible. But look, I knock on wood here, but I think that once we get the final package out of the House and the Senate, we're going to have something that's serious on budget cutting. And there's one final point on this, Glenn. What no one talks enough about, and where when I talk to Elon, I talk to the Doge folks.
Oh dear.
Where they think they're going to get the most cuts is in taking people, illegal aliens, and other people who are defrauding the Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security system. Like, you think about two people, right? A guy who's paid into Social Security for 40 years. Obviously, we want that guy to get his Social Security benefits.
I don't care what you want. You are legally obligated to make sure that he does. I don't give a fuck what you like. I got news for you. I'm sure there are judges that have been with hookers who, when a prostitute is in front of them in court, has to apply the law to the fullest extent right there, even though under normal circumstances, he would be inclined to think of what she's doing as overall a plus. Or he. I don't want to be sexist about it. So maybe,
pair that person to an illegal alien who's engaged in Medicaid fraud. Obviously, we don't want that person to get their benefits. I think.
Right. And how many trillions of dollars do you think that is in our budget? But I'll give you a hint. It's in the area of zero. Yeah. Am I foul-mouthing peanut butter? No. Peanut Butter Dickhead is Patrick Bet David. He just has his PBD podcast, and I couldn't remember his name all the time. And so, to me, PB&J, PBD, Peanut Butter Dickhead, it just made sense.
Democrats are going to fight us on this, but this...
No, they're not. No, they're not. Democrats aren't going to fight you on making sure that people who are defrauding Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security are going to get benefits. Democrats are not fighting on that at all. No, they're not. Fuck off. The lies, garbage, idiocy. Our problem is that in the pursuit of this fucking Sasquatch of $1 trillion in fraud that you're going to somehow cut from the budget, that you're going to cut real people who really need it from the benefits that they have earned and deserve. That's our problem.
Such an important point. We cannot allow people to defraud the Medicare and
Yeah, no shit. That's why Obama passed a law that looks into Medicare and Medicaid fraud every fucking year. It's why Doge counted the funds that were recovered under that law, under that program, under that scrutiny as their own, as if they saved that money. It's like saying, imagine if somebody came in, a judge, and said, murder is now illegal. I'm going to make sure that people, who commit murder are, when they're found guilty, are going to go to jail. You're like, yeah, that's always been the law. And then pretending it isn't. Just like, no, I made it up. I'm just going to start doing that right now. And the other side wants murderers to go free. Why? Because they want a trial. Like, we don't need a trial for these folks. We know they're look at him. Of course he's a murderer. Of course she's a murderer. Look at her. That's the argument here.
A system, or it's going to bankrupt this country. It's also just fundamentally unfair. I don't want people who shouldn't even be here to be on the public dole.
Right. I know you're headed over to the...
What about the ones that work under the table and pay into Social Security using a fake Social Security number, never get those benefits, but are keeping the system afloat through their work and stuff, and then eventually get bounced out? Should we give them a check for all the Social Security that they did? Like, hey, here's a refund. You made this money, but you got to go. Or does that count as their fine? Or how about this? How about if they've lived here long enough and they paid into Social Security, but they weren't a citizen? You find out they've been living here for 10 years and they've been paying into Social Security this entire time. How about that's their fee to buy a fucking, a H-1B visa?
You're going to be celebrating the inaugural Mass of Pope Leo this weekend, along with Senator Rubio, who's...
Don't go anywhere near him.
So Catholic. You had one of the last conversations with the last Pope.
Yes. So it was murder. All right. And again, I don't give a shit about the rest of this. By the way, hit the like, share the show, subscribe, etc. I want to jump to this other thing We'll go to this first. Can I? All right. All right. It's time. I wouldn't even call this friendly fire. It's time to call some fuckers out. You know how we've had an issue with the New York Times lately and this kind of like right lean that they've been trying to do, and they've been trying to pick up some stuff. I want to show you something that I find particularly grotesque. Well, all right. This was it's an older video, so it's not even part of their direct turn, I will say. And it sort of shows that there's always been this, but it's very telling about when this video came out. It was during the Biden administration. But I want to show you something. I stumbled upon this, and if you want to know how Trump got in office, and you want to know how people suddenly like turned on Democrats as being part of the problem when they're trying to be part of the solution, it's because of shit like this. And I don't know if you, what's this fucking guy's name? I don't remember. Anyways, this guy right here, you probably see him doing videos. This is for the New York Times opinion page. Let's see. This is that the, where's this transcript or whatever? I don't know that they have them in here. Okay, anyways. So it's a lot of like, he's talking about, okay, this is about homelessness. And the reason this brought up is because somebody was talking earlier about people shitting on Gavin Newsom for, for some of his camp roundups. And I would argue that there is a, I'll show you as we go through this. But they attack in this, they only attack the side that's trying to actually do some good. They also play fast and loose with their analogies and their anecdotes, or their anecdotal evidence, and they play fast and loose with statistics. And it's almost like a master class in how this shit goes. And I'll show you what I mean. Check this out.
There is a question I've had for a very long time, and it has to do with this map. This is a map of the 18 states in the US where Democrats control the legislative and executive branches, or else have some veto-proof majority in the legislature.
Or else have some veto-proof majority. Remember that, because this is a way of letting the Republicans that are in there off the hook, or any kind of like midline policy that isn't far left or some shit gets through, and so that's how they write around this. Hi, Reddy.
In DC often blame the GOP for foiling their progressive vision.
When middle-class families see their taxes go up, they'll know Republicans are to blame.
Okay, specifically, that is Chuck Schumer addressing a federal tax, not a state tax. And you will see that in a lot of these instances where he's talking about the governments of the states and the legislatures of the states, and the funding that they come up with for state-funded stuff versus the federal stuff, he plays fast and loose with, like, they're talking specifically about a federal tax, right there what Schumer said, but somehow as a senator talking about a federal tax, this is somehow in line with how the legislature in a state acts in general. It's so fucked up. And by the way, because when Chuck Schumer's talking about these kind of things, he's not just applying it to blue states.
If you zoom into these 18 states, there's effectively...
By the way, these 18 states that he's talking about, where they have this, highest health standards, longest lives, best outcome when you have a terminal illness, cancer, any other thing, best education scores, highest income averages, all apply in these areas. And I'll make a special point of Illinois in a second, because this little piece of Illinois pays for all of this part.
No Republicans standing in the way. So my question is, what do Democrats actually do when they...
Also, by the way, no Republicans standing in the way when you go to a state is also bullshit. Check out Irvine in California.
all the power?
And San Diego and the areas around San Francisco that aren't downtown.
To answer this question, I teamed up with the Times editorial board writer Binya Applebaum.
Okay. Now, you get two assholes in this video. And yes, I'm calling them both assholes. Both, like, I used to sort of view some of these videos favorably until I started catching on to how they do it. And the way they play fast and loose with the morals of this and how they point their finger and how it ultimately does a very TYT thing, which is undermine people's positive beliefs about the Democratic Party and the goals that the Democrats are trying to achieve, while basically giving Republicans a fucking break. I've never seen a more shocking example than this one.
You got my attention.
He's been thinking about and writing books about and reporting on this topic for decades.
I think,
And apparently it's only gotten worse. So maybe it's his fault.
Americans tend to view politics as a competition of us versus them. And they tend to think that if they would just get out of the way, then we can do the things that we want to do. There is no...
That is literally how MAGA thinks about it. As a matter of fact, they are pushing everybody else. They are pulling any Democrat root and branch out of the government so they don't have any barriers whatsoever. And Democrats don't do that when they get in office. They might go for judges they like. They might put people in charge of things like when they, cabinet positions, but they're not going to go through there and do loyalty fucking tests. And if there's anybody who's a Republican, immediately bounce them on name only. So shut this fuckery down. Also, how dare this guy hold up this sign, right?
Standing in the way. There's just the we of Democrats and their supporters, and they get to decide what policy should look like in those states.
Also, no, they don't, because blue states put money into the federal government, and the federal government spends it evenly across the states. And so red states live off the tit of the blue states, and Illinois is a particularly egregious version of that because all of Illinois hangs off the tax dollars of the Chicagoland area.
That is an opportunity for them to implement their vision.
For this story, I also delved into this giant document. It is the 2020 Democratic Party platform. If you want to really understand what Democrats say they want, what their vision is for America, it's found inside of this document.
Yes, all the things they actually create bills for and actually promote and actually push through. Let's just start one-to-one. ACA, all homeless shelter funding comes from Democratic bills and activity. All of it, 100%.
Document serves as a guide as we zoom into these states to answer this question.
Also, the Democratic National Committee, the party platform, specifically does not align with the Democratic groups in states if they have varying tax bases and varying sizes of the government. There's a huge difference between fucking California and Oregon, for example, in the tax base they have to work with.
What do Democrats really do when they have all the power?
The ACA, infrastructure, the American Rescue Plan, the child income tax credit, the repealing of tax breaks for billionaires. That's what they do. This motherfucker.
Nearly 554,000 homeless people
from the 25 wealthiest Americans shows they're paying little in income taxes compared to their fortunes, sometimes nothing at all. We cannot, in good faith.
Look at this fucking montage. Watch this. Watch what happens here. Because this is what I would call like a propaganda sleight of hand. He's flipping through. This is what they say. Here's what they do. And again, when you go to California and you see people who are homeless in California, one of the reasons why there's more homeless in California and the western states than there are, say, in even Illinois or fucking New York is because they don't freeze to death. Or if in Texas's case, Texas buses their fucking homeless up there, especially their mentally ill, up there and drops them off. They basically one of the reasons why Abbott was so comfortable busing migrants into the rest of the country is because they've been doing it with homeless people and drug addicted and mentally ill people for years.
As a guide.
Watch this fucking montage and as a commercial for what this asshole is selling.
As we zoom into these states to answer this question.
As we zoom into these states.
What do Democrats really do when they have all the power?
Nearly 554,000 homeless people
from the 25 wealthiest Americans shows they're paying little in income taxes compared to their fortunes, sometimes nothing at all. We cannot, in good faith, blame the Republican Party when House Democrats have a majority.
There's still very intense segregation.
Notice they took an AOC thing. We can't blame them when House Democrats have the majority about a specific piece of legislation. And again, how does that apply to state law and state funds? And by the way, I forget what this guy's name is, but he does these kind of videos all the time. These like breakdown videos, but this is for the New York Times opinion. Okay, this has 11 million views. Seibler, no. Nope. Fuck Luigi. We are against the death penalty here, especially the death penalty without a trial. Always and forever. Sorry. If you're pro-snuff, go some fucking place else.
All kinds of forms all over this country.
Opinion. No shit. By the way, this is the New York Times opinion putting this together.
Okay, so let's start with California. To me, California is like the quintessential liberal state. From the state legislature.
Yes, you mean the quintessential liberal state that's had Republican governors over, what, 3 of the last 5 terms? That has large economic bases in the country, like Irvine, like San Diego, like Silicon Valley, like where like Peter Thiel and his crowd are going to make their own fucking mega village for themselves, like Napa, where all the wine country is. These giant, wine farms that are up there, and all the money that flows through there. Those conservatives, okay, this is a new thing.
The whole executive branch to most of the big cities.
Most, except for Fresno and Bakersfield, very big. Also where there's per capita way more murder than there are in the other giant cities that apparently this motherfucker doesn't care about. All right, sorry, 1 second. Where is it? Yeah.
And when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
Right.
Hold majority control. So what do they do with all this power?
Looking at California, you have to look at housing.
Okay, now wait, listen. When I hear the words housing policy, I tend to sort of doze off. But
also, by the way, apparently you did because, hold on. There's like, where would it be? Like, anyways, you're like, yes. Let's see. I'm gonna try to do the news on this. See if I can. I'm trying to find the house going to be my former car in Alhambra. Yeah, here's the newer stuff. So he's going to be using information from, well, you'll see. If I drive into LA all the time, okay, from Vegas, and I'm there a bunch. 5 years ago, if I was driving back and forth, there's a period where you would get out into the the East Valley. You'd get out to the East Valley past a certain point, past the 605 on the 210 or the 10, and you'd see like industrial parks, and there's definitely some housing. But now there are rows and rows and rows of brand new homes being built in that area as people move out. And all fires and rebuilding aside, the amount of development is through the fucking roof. And the inland part of Los Angeles, the downtown and the surrounding area, the control of that area is not up to the California governor or the state assembly or any of that stuff. It's up to the city council. Even the mayor doesn't have that much strength to move that part of it. They get to approve, the city council gets to approve all that stuff. And there's a tremendous amount of what I would consider like conservative minority members, people who are trying to keep like their neighborhoods property values as high as possible as the main investment point for people. So watch this.
Insists that housing policy and what is happening in California is definitely worth looking at.
Okay, Watch the fucking example he gives. Does he give an example of like the valley where there's a lot of room and it's growing, or areas like Hesperia and stuff that have been expanding and people are building homes up there, or even Los Angeles where, 2-story buildings are now zoned for 3 to 5-story buildings after the earthquake and stuff. And a lot of this had to do with it's an earthquake zone. And for a long time, people wouldn't move into a building that was over 5 stories high because it made them nervous because of earthquakes. That was one of the biggest, after the earthquake, the big one, the 7.2, which I was there for, people started, they saw which structures stayed up and they were like, okay, they don't feel that bad about it. And they found a way to make sure that new buildings could withstand this. So check this out, though. Where did they go? Did they pick a neighborhood like, downtown San Francisco where they could refurbish big parts of the Tenderloin, clean it up and have be apartments again and all that kind of stuff? Watch where they go.
Not say that you are against inequality in America unless you are willing to have affordable housing built in your neighborhood.
Okay, there you go. You can't say you are against inequality unless you believe in affordable housing being built in your area. So if you live in single family homes in an area and you're against them building in the middle of town or wherever it is, you are against the issue, okay? You are against equal housing being available to everybody because you don't want it built in your neighborhood, wherever the fuck that is. Okay, here we go.
Democrats completely agree. Here in this document, the word housing is mentioned over 100 times.
Yeah, it's 2 per state. That's a national, and some of the housing, by the way, cut the housing programs that the Democrats have put in place. Look at the text of this. Democrats will vigorously the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, the impact standard, hold lenders accountable. Then you ensure the federal housing programs are better designed so that, yes.
The neighborhood where you're born has a huge influence on the rest of your life.
Okay, and so this is, I would like to say for the record, I think they're showing fucking Detroit. Remember, we just went from California. Yeah, and California has a lot of Republicans. Exactly.
The neighborhood where you're born has a huge influence on the rest of your life. Children who are born in neighborhoods with degraded environmental conditions, with a lack of access to high-quality public services, poor schools, poor public transit, are at a permanent disadvantage.
Oh, so we should probably, kill those people? If they're a permanent disadvantage, I mean, what are you saying, basically? Anybody who grew up in poverty is a drag on society. They're never going to be able to think straight, right? So, I mean, aren't we better off with just institutionalizing these people? What the fuck are you talking about? I grew up in Peaks Mill, Kentucky, on a fucking creek that flooded half the time, and thank God it did, or we'd have had no place to go to the bathroom when we ran out of water.
Even say verbatim, housing in America should be stable, accessible, safe, healthy, energy efficient, and above all, affordable.
Housing is a human right.
Housing is a human right.
The rent is going through the roof. Housing is a human right.
How does California do when it comes to housing?
Yeah, so let's go to California. How does California do? Okay, it's the most expensive one because it's beach property. And the average price is weighted against the fact that there are houses there are dozens in rows in Beverly Hills and in the up above the Palisades, beyond where my friends who lived in apartments, by the way, lost their homes in the fucking fire, that are multi-million dollar homes, all the way up to Malibu, $25 million. What do you think a bunch of $25 million homes does to the average? Imagine what thousands of them do. Think about all the beachfront property all the way up from fucking San Diego to the north. What do you think that does to the average home price? Right. Okay.
You know where those signs are when you drive into a state? It says, "Welcome to California." They might as well replace them with signs that say, "Keep out." Because
fuck you.
California, the cost of housing is so high that for many people it's simply unaffordable. The state has...
Yeah, that's true of Manhattan as well. By the way, you can afford a house in Bakersfield. That's in California. There's a lot of houses in Fresno you can buy. And do you think those houses are actually the same price as the ones in fucking Malibu? And do you think there's like a sliding scale there because these are expensive, these are way more expensive? Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's 1,400 miles of coast.
For the most part, stopped building housing. I mean, there are cranes, there's housing going up, but it has slowed down over time really, really sharply, and it is nowhere near sufficient to keep pace with California's population. And so what you have...
This is 2000 to 2020. That's the population. It's gone up about 5 million. That would be families, children, individuals, and the like. I don't know. Again, I don't know where they're getting the chart from in this regard. So they're going back to total housing permits in California, right? Have leveled off. Those are constantly being issued. So this is how many permits. They're always been, they're just this new house, like all the time. So they're not rising with it. They're also existing structures. You don't need a permit for an existing structure. So people move into existing structures, and then you like, Jesus Christ. If the housing market moved with the population like this, you just end up having rows and rows of derelict homes that nobody lived in anymore. What the fuck are you talking about?
And
that's
it is
so weird.
Nowhere near sufficient to keep pace with California's population.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is.
And so what you have is not enough housing and too many people trying to get it.
So there's still a reason to go there? There's some other value to living in the state besides just the fucking beach? People keep coming to California, and the population keeps going up because apparently not only are they coming, they're meeting people, and they're fucking, and they're having children. So the population's going up. When are these stupid people going to realize that they should just stay in fucking Kansas?
Inevitable result is that prices have gone up and away.
The median price of a home in San Diego County is now a staggering $830,000.
Yeah, San Diego County. The median price in San Diego. So what, you think all the houses, the average house is $800,000? You think that's what it is? And the motherfucker just put a sold sign on it. So apparently people are buying these goddamn things.
$1,000.
All around California, there are cities full of people who say that they are progressive.
Hang on. Full of people who say they are progressive. Okay.
All around California.
By the way, this is all single family homes. I don't even think this is California. Who can even fucking say? It's just a drone shot.
Our cities full of people.
Apartments. These are not single family dwellings. I'm pretty sure this is Santa Barbara. So this is like stores and apartments and a couple of hotels and that kind of stuff. If this is like Santa Barbara, Montecito, again, another example of like multi-million-dollar homes. If this is, I'm pretty sure this is Santa Barbara, but if it is, that's where Marianne Williamson's house was in Montecito, right about there. Yeah, about an hour and 15 minutes north of my fucking apartment in Los Angeles when I worked for her.
Say that they are progressive. They're liberals. They believe in a more equal America.
Yeah, here they are all standing inside in front of the Masonic Temple where they're going to go vote.
Diverse America. They show up to the marches, they put in the lawn signs about everyone being equal, but at the same time, they're actively fighting to keep their neighborhoods looking like this.
They are? So they are. So all these people, those black people and Hispanic people and white people who are all standing in line outside of that building to go vote, those people are actively fighting to keep the broke fuckers out of their neighborhood. Jesus Christ. Now check this out.
Okay, wait, but that doesn't look so bad.
That doesn't look like fucking anywhere. Honest to God, that looks like Connecticut.
A bunch of houses in a neighborhood, right? No. It turns out that
those are not houses in a neighborhood.
Is actually the result of specific policies, intentional policies that
have been there since Reagan was governor.
These neighborhoods spread out and full of single-family homes, as opposed to higher density buildings like.
Also, check out this area, like these higher density buildings or whatever. That's a multifamily home. That's got two fucking entrances. Look, see that one? That's the downstairs part of the house, and that's the upstairs. This is a duplex. It might even be divided down the fucking middle for all we know. That's not a single family home, you asshole. It might have been at one point, but it's been chopped up.
And full of single family homes.
Not a single family home, dickhead. Not at all. And again, this is not an example of, like, look at the fucking gate on this thing.
As opposed to higher density buildings like duplexes or apartment complexes.
Literally just showed a multifamily home. And I don't even know where this footage is from, but this is what fucking West Valley looks like, or the East Valley looks like now.
This is a real serious fight, and you can get a glimpse into it by looking at a zoning map. Yes, we're looking at a municipal zoning map of Palo Alto, California.
Yeah. Palo Alto, California. The defining neighborhood for California as a fucking whole. Palo Alto? Again, why don't you just show Malibu while you're at it? And again, I don't know, show me fucking Cleveland. What's the homelessness situation like in Cleveland and around the Ohio area where that is? Because that's a lot of single family homes. It's almost entirely single family homes. And watch this. Do you think they're going to give an example of how people wanted to put apartments in just so people could live there, and they zoned against it because it was low income housing, Section 8 shit, right? This is the idea. Okay, this is supposed to be Palo Alto. Here we go.
Don't leave yet. This is really where it sinks in. So just stick around. So everything on this map that is yellow is zoned for single family homes,
and the rest of it isn't. So all throughout here, you can build whatever the fuck you want. All up here, you can build whatever you want. All the way through, you can build. Some of this is hillside, I would guess, but those are definitely streets. So you can build, and it's not like this is the fucking size. It looks like from the image here, like it's the size of Connecticut or some shit.
This and this. One family can live here. But here in Palo Alto, there are a lot of new jobs. This is a desirable place to live.
Yes, and you don't have to live in Palo Alto to have that fucking job. There are tons of places next door. It's like saying Cupertino is a great place to live. Where's your fucking Cupertino house?
For new opportunities. Over the past 8 years, the San Francisco area has added
the San Francisco area.
176,000 jobs, but only 176,000 housing units.
What's the vacancy rate? Just because they've added the jobs, again, this is the San Francisco area. Are they all in the same place? Are they all downtown? Did some jobs go away downtown, which they clearly did, and you could live in areas there cheaper, which you clearly can. Just look at the guy who attacked fucking Pelosi's husband. That dude was flopping with a friend in a place that she could clearly, I don't know, she's like a fucking Reiki healer and could afford basically a small house in that area of town.
So a few years ago, the city council voted to change the zoning of one section of the city right here. Specifically this 2-acre plot of land.
Okay. They were doing a facility. They weren't changing they were changing the zoning from a park to this thing. I don't know what was there before. We'll see.
To change it from low density housing to higher density housing so that they could build a 60-unit affordable housing complex for elderly members of the community. Okay.
For elderly members of the community. So let me guess. There was an investor who wanted to build a home for mom place right there in the middle of town, wherever that was. And that investor wanted to build that thing. So they had to change the zoning. So they filed for a change of zoning in that, whatever that building was. It was supposed to be, God knows what the fuck the building's there for. Maybe it served an actual purpose, right? And I'm guessing that we'll see what they like. Some of the people were just against the change in zoning because you could do whatever you want with it. But more than likely, they didn't like the developer. But
so they changed the zone.
And also, it's fucking Palo Alto. I guarantee you, a big portion of that town voted for Trump. I'm telling you.
Start building the 60-unit complex. No. The overwhelmingly
No. Start building the 60-unit complex. I'm not going to. No. We don't want these old places. Yeah, place for mom. You know the old folks' homes that you see ads for on MSNBC all the time?
Residents of Palo Alto decided to hold a vote to overturn the decision, to revert it back to low-density, single-family housing, back to yellow. And it passed, and the zoning was over.
Apparently, Democrats in a heavily Republican area, right, that voted for Gray Davis, that voted for Arnold Schwarzenegger, that voted for Ronald Reagan, right? This is how the vote came down. And this separation, this 56-43 vote on this Measure D thing from this particular group of people means Democrats don't give a fuck about old people. That's what this means to this asshole. Put that shit together for me. What the fuck? This many votes, and in a town of 168,000 people, they voted on Measure D. Most of the people didn't even fucking vote. When the fuck was this? And it still was like within margin.
So now when you go to this plot of land, instead of an affordable housing complex for the elderly, what you're gonna see is this.
No, you're not. There wasn't that stuff to begin with. That house isn't there. That's not that plot of land.
A row of just a few houses, all of them massive and worth around $5 million each.
Right. Hey, that might impact you think that might impact the $800,000 median cost of housing in the area? That those are $5 million houses in fucking Palo Alto? Jesus Christ.
People aren't living their values. You go to these...
The people aren't living that... Well, hey, 46% of them were, asshole.
In these neighborhoods where they're talking about a new housing project, and it's always the same song, and it goes like this. I am very in favor of affordable housing.
Okay, this is just a NIMBY attack. That's what he's saying, not in my backyard, that they're doing NIMBY here. That's not what this was at all. There is plenty of area zoned for these kind of things. The idea that it would have to be there is meaningless. They could absolutely do it someplace else. What somebody wanted to do was buy that plot of land. A developer wanted to change it, and they voted against it because they didn't want it developed. Because it's single-family home area. It's meant to be a neighborhood. And this is supposed to mean that, so this 8,000 votes to 6,000 votes in fucking Palo Alto, which has 168,000 people in it, is now all Democrats are on the fucking hook.
More of it in this community. However, I have some concerns about this project.
We have the hearts to do this, but we're doing it wrong, and we're dictating and harm onto the neighborhoods.
And then off we go with the concerns, and then...
Also, by the way, if you're going to make a case, go find some place where it's about low-cost housing for, like, Section 8 housing for poor people. That's not even what this fucking was. The specific thing they're showing is a housing unit for elderly people, like an old folks' home, a place for mom, and a relatively well-to-do, expensive one. So when you need to move your mom into assisted care facility or your dad into assisted care facility, they have the fancy ones that are kind of like 55 and over, and then you get elderly and they've got nurses working there and shit like that. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about like, oh, fuck, we don't want the maid living nearby. There's plenty of examples of that. There's tons of examples of that shit. You know what the problem is? You could find 50 of them in Dallas, in Austin, in Houston, right? Then you'd have to bring Republicans into it. Do you have to dig up this fucking Palo Alto old folks home? And that's your example of them dismissing the wants and the needs? What the fuck?
Ever gets built.
This is happening all over California. And the result is that these neighborhoods are
No, it's not.
so expensive that they keep anyone out who isn't a part of this small group of super rich residents.
Yes, all these people don't have homes. They're just walking around. All they do is walk all day because they cannot afford an apartment. No one even knows where they're walking to because they don't have jobs either. There's so much and what you're supposed to believe. Let me show you how this is put together. So they show you Malibu or fucking up in Antelope Valley where nobody was building, where you'd have to pay extra money to get water pumped up there and nobody could fucking afford it. And it's like a 2-hour drive to get into Los Angeles. And then watch this. So they cut to this. Like the foot traffic in this area.
Keep anyone out who isn't a part of this small group of super.
This is fucking Venice. This is like Laguna Beach or something, which is another example of a very expensive area with plenty of apartments.
Residents, many of whom bought their properties decades ago, and
these old fuckers buying their houses decades ago and staying in them like assholes. Why don't you die already so we can bulldoze your house and turn all your and your neighbors' houses into giant apartment buildings? This dude does realize that in the 80s he would have been a bad guy in a Hulk episode, right?
Their time fighting vigorously to keep the valley.
You live in Antelope Valley? Yeah, it's a great example. Antelope Valley has a ton of both duplexes and single-family homes and apartment buildings that are being built. And has been expanding for fucking ever.
Of their real estate assets.
And look at this. If you're seeing the water, I don't care where you are in the world, it's going to be expensive. I got news for you. When I went apartment shopping, when I rolled into LA on my last tank of gas in my piece of shit 140,000 miles on it car into the apartment that I would rent with my roommate Matt, that we got on Kling Street and Pass Avenue in Burbank, California, it took me 2 hours if I wanted to see the beach. Because that's where I could afford an apartment because I was new.
Hi.
If you want to keep Palo Alto the kind of neighborhood and community that we all treasure, low intensity, low density, safe for kids to walk to school, you've got to vote against Measure D.
There's an aspect of sort of greed here and of...
Yes, this greedy thing about them wanting to have kids that can walk to school or some shit. Also, again, fuck you, I'm not on the hook for Palo Alto.
Nervousness about actually sharing those opportunities.
Let's go to another liberal bastion up here in Washington State.
Yeah, let's skip around and pretend all things are equal. So Washington State, again, this is just like, fuck, Washington State, all of the West Coast of Washington State pays for everything past, I can't reach past it, I've got to move myself over, hold on. I'm going to move myself into this. See this area? Okay. All of the tax base of Washington comes from here. The rest of the state is, all the schools, everything out here is paid for by this little piece.
The Democratic Party talks about taxation, saying that our tax code has been, quote, rigged against the American people.
That's also they're talking about the federal tax system in general. Again, different than how states work them out. And state by state, the vote, even if it goes Democratic presidentially, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that the vote across the state is going to go.
Democrats all the time are decrying the fact that tax cuts are going to the wealthiest Americans.
It is time for a wealth tax in America.
Democrats believe in a progressive tax system where...
Right, yes. And Republicans don't at all.
The rich pay a larger share of their income than the poor. This is like the most basic policy vision of like a progressive movement. It's front and center in Democrats' policy platform.
But if you...
Right, if they can do it. And again, there's a difference between what you can do on a federal level versus state level.
And look at Washington State, what you find is that in Washington State, if you look at the the state and local taxes that people pay there. Less affluent families pay a much larger share of their income in taxes than the wealthiest residents of Washington.
That's because the wealthiest residents in Washington, they're doing the same shit with this again. The wealthiest residents in Washington state make bazillions of dollars. So the share of their taxable income is always going to be smaller. Also, it's in fucking like Bill Gates and other their wealth is going to be in stock certificates and shit like that, which isn't monetary compensation and isn't worth anything until you spend it or you sell it and then you have the money. And so, of course, and again, we've been trying to change this. This is what Democrats have been trying to do on a federal level. This is the state taxes versus the federal taxes.
State. So people like Bill Gates and...
Right. What do you think 1% of Bill Gates's income is compared to 17% of everyone else in the state? Even? Just because you're not successful in changing that does not mean that you don't give a shit. And also, they're trying to do it federally so that the funds apply federally across all the states. Otherwise, you just have people jumping states, which is exactly what happened in California.
Bezos, two of the state's most famous and wealthy residents.
Right. Who by themselves pay more in income tax than almost the entire rest of the state in cash. And if they leave, because 1% difference in that, if they were to move to fucking Idaho with the promise of you don't have to pay any taxes at all, you can move here and do it, they could do it in a heartbeat. So if you want them to stay there and keep their business there, it's just like a sports team. It's almost the exact same thing when you build a sports stadium. There's a reason to do it, but you have to be careful that you don't like have a tipping point where they just fuck off, okay? And again, on a federal level, this is what Democrats have been trying to do, raise this, even it out, do all kinds of stuff. But the idea that the state doesn't want to do it because people will just fuck off to another state is the issue.
Are in this lovely situation of paying less in taxes as a
share of their
income.
As a share of their income. Right. Which is fucking extraordinary. Again, this goes to like, you just showed a $25 million home, which means the median house price is $800,000, which means the average house price that you and I would be looking at is probably $300,000 to $500,000, which is normal for most states. That's what it is in Ohio. They just don't have any $1 million houses jacking up the other end of it.
Than the poor people who live in that same state. And this is a fundamental inversion of the values that the Democratic...
Wait, if there's no income tax in Washington state, then no one pays a portion of their taxes. Then they're talking about a consumer tax. Then this asshole spends 3% of what he makes inside the state, and other people spend 7%. They go to stores and go to restaurants and buy clothes and go to Target, so they spend 17% of their income in sales taxes. Is that the case they're fucking making? If there's no income tax in Washington state, then yeah, what the fuck is that? Hold on. And I gotta say, I don't know.
Of paying less in tax.
I don't know. I also don't know why my headphones are being dicks and are dying. It's like all day long I've had, it's been trying to fight back against my, let's see, I think I have another set. Well, I'll set them there and let them reset because I think they just came apart. There's no reason why they shouldn't be charged. So, check. Here we go.
As a share of their income than the poor people.
Okay, share of family. I still can't see this part of it.
In that same state. And this is a fundamental inversion of the value.
Does it seem like to me that they're cutting off the top of this? Is it just me, or does it seem like there's a sentence at the top? There's an 8% sales tax. Okay, so that's what it is. Individuals are buying more shit. That's why Bezos lives there, but he fucking flies all over the world. So he's buying shit everywhere, right?
Then the poor people.
Look at this. This is the frame. I want to show you this. This is crucial, and I want you to watch out. This is the top of the frame. This is their framing on this. And the title is Liberal Hypocrisy is Fueling American Inequality. Here's How. Fuck you guys. And look at this. That's the cutoff. That's their line. That's their framing. Share of family income. And again, it doesn't even, like, do they scan in on it? Like, I don't even see them float in on it. They go across it. Hold on. Let's see if...
who live in that same state. And this is a fundamental inversion of the values that the Democratic Party professes. There is no state with a more regressive system of taxation than Washington state.
And I'm talking like the most regressive, meaning Texas, which is...
Hold on. Highest is least progressive. Tax inequality, Washington state, which has no income tax. Is that what that's the argument we're doing? Texas is second. And what a close second. What is this? Source, IPEP.org. Open link. ITEP, Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. Recklessly expensive tax bill would expand inequality. Sharp turn in federal policy brings significant risk for state tax revenues. House tax bill. Okay, let's go to. By the way, fucking baller how like I was able to click in on a link in the actual page. Welcome to 2025. Yeah, this is the sales tax part of it. But they don't make a distinction. So hold on. Tax, where would you even, let's see. State rundown, state tax debates, experts view geographic distribution of extreme wealth in the U.S. Washington, D.C. office, ITEPs in D.C. Carl Davis is the research director. The experts view recent work reports. Policy briefs and news release. Let's go to reports. Federal tax policy. What should accomplish? Shelter Skelter. How the Educational Source for Children Act should use tax avoidance to fuel school privatization. Would. Okay. Revenue impact analysis, the Educational Choice for Children Act 2025. High rent, low wealth, addressing racial wealth gap through a federal renter credit. State-by-state tax expenditure reports. Revenue, okay, that's the expenditure report. A distributional analysis of Harris's tax plan. This tax proposal would, on average, lead to tax increase for the richest 1% of Americans and a tax cut for all other income groups. We could have had that. Former President Donald Trump has proposed a wide variety of tax policy changes. Taken together, these proposals would, on average, lead to a tax cut for the richest 5% of Americans and a tax increase for all other income groups. So, according to the group that this asshole is shitting on, liberals, namely, somehow Trump would have been better for it and whatever. Okay, fuck me.
The conservative bastion of like anti-taxes is more progressive than Washington state, liberal Washington state. How...
On what standard?
Real. Oh, and guess what? Other states on our map also are in the top 10.
Hold on 1 second. Pause for a second. I'm going to, we have a technical difficulty. I'm almost back. Damn it. All right. It's just been a day of... All right. There we go. We're back. Sorry about that, everybody. And fade. I feel like the music kind of makes us all feel better, though, a little bit when that goes on. Okay, excellent. Yeah, so, did you miss what? Yes. So, let's see if I can hear this.
Most regressive tax...
Okay, now that's gonna...
Teams like Nevada and...
create a little bit of feedback. I apologize on that, just because for some reason my... Like today, I'm obviously being attacked by the electronics gremlins. Not quite sure why. Clearly, I think it's the deep state. Did I cut my hair? No, I've got a ponytail in, you know, because that's how we do. All right, so we're almost done with this because you'll get the point in a second, because he gets to Illinois, and this is where I really get pissed off, because being from Chicago, yeah.
Illinois.
There have been some changes, particularly in recent years, but the overall situation remains resistant to change.
So I am very concerned that at this time, which is a very poor time to disincent people from creating jobs in Washington State, that we're even considering it.
From that paycheck that you earn, more...
Also, again, income tax not a thing in this, so I'm not quite sure where their details come from. So it's hard to grasp what the fuck they're talking about with Washington State in terms of this, except for federal stuff. Right.
Money is going to state government, and so the effect of that is basically to exacerbate inequality.
Okay, so rich liberals don't show up when it comes to housing or taxes.
So rich liberals don't show up. Okay, guess what? Most liberals aren't rich, you motherfucker.
Another major theme in this policy document,
which he holds up again, the derision. Understand the propaganda that you're seeing here. That's the clear part. I want to make, because a lot of times it's obvious to see it when it's Glenn Beck or one of these other fuckers. They're ham-headed. They're not the ones that actually are insidious, because the target audience for this is not to shame liberals in front of Republicans. It is to guilt liberals into not showing up or distancing themselves from the Democratic Party. That's the purpose.
Is education.
Oh boy, here we go. Democrats push through the Department of Education, want to increase funding nationally for everywhere, have been pushing everything, have come to stalemates like No Child Left Behind in an attempt to at least get the Republicans on board, even when they're running everything. Best education outcomes, most spending of any state happens when Democrats run the state.
And the wording in here I find quite interesting. The Democrats say, quote, "We must provide world-class education in every zip code to every child."
Right. This is a federal plan to guarantee it across the board. Okay.
Because education is a critical public good.
Right. Republicans are against it. They want charter schools. They want it tracked directly to zip code.
They use this word zip code to represent the...
Okay, zip code's not a word.
That in America, schools get their funding based on the real estate taxes of the houses within that school district.
Right. Because oftentimes, this might shock you, people with extra money tend to decide what they want to do with it. And when they argue for higher taxes in their area, they often are the first to sign off on budgetary adds to their education. So when you have a family neighborhood, the tendency of the people there, when the government says, when the local government, the city council, the house or whatever, says, do you want better school? We need to do a ballot measure in this area for this. Now, this is beyond the fact that, you know, just tracking it to zip code, there's a chicken and egg issue with this. And so what you try to do is make up for it. You make up for it with federal dollars, because these low budget areas, these low income places, they don't have the extra money to build extra schools. But when a neighborhood is well to do and has developed a neighborhood and it's flourishing, those people who make more money are going to put more of it into their fucking schools. If they don't, that's even weirder. If zip code money went through the fucking roof, but their spending on education was lower than other places, or even with it, it would be fucking weird. If you lived in a nice area and you paid more in property taxes, it seems logical that if you give a shit, you would want more of it to go to the education in your area. So the idea that it just tracks to that and not that that's part of the priorities of a nice neighborhood versus a shitty neighborhood, because of the when I grew up in Kentucky, I guarantee the low-income area I was in, the vast majority of people did not value higher education or even public education at all. Right? Okay. So look, the Democrats, and myself included, want to guarantee that the baseline for public education is always there, and that a minimum standard is surpassed, that even in low-income areas, there's enough funding gathered federally in tax dollars that instead of putting it towards missiles and bombs, you build some schools with it. That's what Democrats want to do. Then that is Republicans, that's something Republicans are directly against. And what this asshole's gonna do is going to take the idea that people in cities and neighborhoods that have more money, that are more wealthy than poor areas, will put more stuff in, more of their local tax dollars into their fucking schools, and that is a sign that they are evil and don't give a shit about anyone else. Meanwhile, they also pay more in federal taxes, and they also tend to vote in a way that they want those federal taxes to go to uniform education across the fucking country. So it's a lie, and it can't stand, and I will not allow it, and it must be said, because this fucking pisses me off. And this is the kind of shit, again, this is not aimed at maggots to dunk on, this isn't a fucking Ben Shapiro video, this is the goddamn New York Times opinion page. While Joe Biden was president, while they were trying, at the exact same time, they're trying to raise and keep the child tax credit. At the same fucking time, one thing that would keep low-income people from losing their housing when they have children. If you're the working poor, one of the benefits of the child tax credit was that it would keep you from being close to that edge of being evicted in some cases. Yes, this is a New York Times opinion video. This is from, and the guy that they have as his expert in this horse shit is a regular New York Times opinion writer. And I would love to debate either of these dopey motherfuckers on either of this, on this topic, because it fucking enrages me.
The more expensive the neighborhood, the more funding goes to the school.
Right. Because people who have a lot of money actually value education. And guess what? People who are well educated tend to make more money. And people who tend to make more money tend to want their kids better educated. This is not as simple as these rich motherfuckers are flicking away these goddamn poor kids, because they also give more in these rich areas he's bitching about, especially in California, especially in blue states. And this, I would argue, this does not apply to fucking Dallas or Houston or fucking Baton Rouge or fucking Miami, any of these like basically rich redneck areas of the country that have the same kind of money, right? They don't want their dollars to go to federal education. I do. The people in like the Palisades that just got fucking burned down, I guarantee every single fucking one of those people voted for bond measures to improve schools, even though it would take more of their tax dollars. Every fucking one of them. And this, I mean, look at how this is designed.
So, over here in Illinois.
Fuck you, dude. By the way, Illinois saved my life. Moving from Kentucky to Chicago was the single greatest decision I ever made on my own. And it was a difficult decision because I would have rather lived with my mom, but my dad moved up there and he was like, I'll get a guest house near New Trier so you can go to this really good high school, which, by the way, benefited from all these rich fucking people who lived there dumping more money into it. And again, voting for every educational, ballot measure or tax raise that ever came through. They never said no to it. And New Trier looked like it still does. It looks like a university compared to other high schools. And my high school in Kentucky, we're in the fucking capital. Franklin County is the capital of Kentucky. I literally went to the old library building all the time, and then I would actually go down to the Capitol afterwards and use the snack machines that the fucking House members used, because it was a walk there. It was literally YMCA, the library, and the fucking Capitol. That's where I grew up. And yet, even in the Capitol, They would vote against the measures to raise money for our schools all the fucking time. And by the way, Louisville, Lexington, big horse farms, a lot of Arabian money, incredibly rich areas considering the state. And if you looked at the average house price in Kentucky, for example, I bet it's pretty low. But it would be way lower if it wasn't for the horse farms. Right? And those people who own the horse farms could give a rat's ass about the average Kentuckian and the kid that's going to a public school in Louisville or Lexington or Frankfurt.
Which is like the quintessential liberal state.
No, it's not.
One county that contains the city of Chicago.
Yes, one county that contains the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago, which has 3 times the population of the Dakotas. That all these school districts are bigger than most of the counties in America. That just the neighborhoods, these little breakout areas of Chicago, are larger than, I would say, 70% of the counties in the entire country.
Called Cook County. The residents here voted overwhelmingly for Democratic candidates in the presidential and
even though it would raise their taxes.
Senatorial elections last year.
Even though it would raise their taxes.
Often what would happen is that this would just be one big school district. And
no, it would not. And there's no often when you, like, is there one fucking school district in North Dakota and South Dakota, Wyoming and Wisconsin, for fuck's sake? I mean, you're talking about the same population numbers. The population density is fucking enormous. You could never just organize it as one fucking school district under a single county, you asshole.
All the taxes from all the towns in this county would be put into one bucket and distributed equally throughout.
No, it would not. I'll tell you why, too. Because in Cook County, guess what? There are areas like around Schaumburg and these other places that there's barely any fucking people. So why would you distribute it evenly if there aren't that many fucking kids in there? Also, secondarily, wouldn't you guess that in every case where the people who pay extra to live near the coastal parts of the water, they spend extra to build a house and all that kind of stuff, are going to have a little extra money left over. And what are those people going to do? They're going to spend it on schools. They're going to spend it on their fucking children.
County. But the residents of this very blue Democratic county have actually decided to divide themselves into more than 140 school districts.
Oh, did they? They did. So all these Democrats somewhere in the early 1900s decided when public schools became a thing to divide themselves up into these little school districts just to be assholes.
So now you have all these tiny school districts.
They're not tiny. They're geographically tiny, but they're dense. There's tons of fucking people in them.
This one, which are like gerrymandered around the richest part of town. And so all of the taxes from these...
Are they like gerrymandered around the richest part of town?
Homeowners go into one little bucket and then only get distributed to the schools within this rich region of the county.
It can be on the same block that the town line runs through the middle of it. And if you live on one side of that line, you're consigned to an inferior education.
Also, can I just point out, look at what's being done here. They showed you this aerial shot of this little green thing with money flying out into the lake and then flying right back because these assholes want to take care of their kids or some shit. And that it's been gerrymandered like they had any fucking choice. Instead of, this is a nice school, people moved into this neighborhood and it got better and it got wealthier over time because people chose to be in there. And the same cycle happened in the negative in the next county over, or there's just fucking nobody there. So even if there were schools in that area, there's not anywhere near the kids and the number of, like, where the funding goes, or there's fewer in that rich area. There's only one school or something, or two, but by the volume of the students that go to them, like New Trier East and West, you've got all these kids crammed into these giant fucking buildings. It's so fucking annoying. And secondly, where are these fucking pictures from? This is Channel 2 Chicago, CBS Chicago. It's 51 degrees and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. That's all we know. But there's apparently something falling off the ceiling in this particular building. That's the extent of what we know. And the idea that like all the schools in Chicago, like everything in Evanston or on the South Side are all fucking derelict is ridiculous.
By virtue of the fact that you and your neighbors...
It's the same, it's literally... There was a leaky ceiling or something happened in one of these schools, and they're showing stills from the one story. And again, watch this. This happens with the Laken Riley thing on the right. It happens all the time. When you see people do a story about something and they keep coming back to one example over and over again, but they want you to believe that it's a permeate problem that's everywhere, they are lying to you by omission, specifically.
Have as much money. And if you live on the other side, you're basically a member of a club that is sponsoring a private school, essentially, for the benefit.
Hold on. Essentially, let's see. If I may, let's look up, where's Sunset Ridge School? Give me 1 second. Let me open up a page here. Let's see. Sunset Ridge, School. In Sunset Ridge School in Illinois, I guess, right? We're supposed to be in Illinois, Chicago, something like that, somewhere around there. Sunset Ridge School District 29. Yeah, so this is what they're showing. District 29. Let's see. This is what they're showing. Hold on 1 second. This is Sunset Ridge School District 29 in Chicago. The district information. Superintendent, the D29, they have learning centers, safety and security, district report cards, Freedom of Information Act, school closing procedures, strategic plans, Title IX harassment resources, how to contact us. There's the calendar and the staff directory. These are pictures. Here's the kids. Yeah, there we go. Okay, mix of kids, a little Asian kid there. They're doing some sort of, I don't know if this is head, shoulders, knees, and toes, whatever. They're doing Tiny Mouse. This is an elementary school in this part of it. There's a Middle Fork School, home of the Dolphins, and then this is the Sunset Ridge School. This is the high school, I guess, that is part of this. It's Northfield. Oh, shit. Northfield is a relatively well-to-do area, but it's New Trier is right next door, and it's way better. New Trier is like the second biggest, and like it's number one or number two best elementary or high school in the country. And this is a new building nearby. This is an expansion project of it. Just saying again. This is the outer like student lobby area, and I guess there's an upstairs, so it's architecturally very pleasing, and there's places to sit while people gather. So they put the auditorium out here because they don't have a main auditorium more than likely, so they do like little gatherings for the students in the actual atrium. And again, how dare they?
Bit of that small group of kids who are lucky enough to live in that affluent community.
They're not lucky. The kids aren't lucky. Their parents either moved there or agreed to spend more money on their schools because they think it's important. This whole shot of sperm nonsense drives me crazy. And again, none of these kids have done anything wrong. And what Democrats want is the available funding so that the baseline is always higher, so there aren't leaky roofs. So they're like in the Infrastructure Act, there is funding for the rebuilding of schools and the removal of lead pipes and the changing of the ventilation systems so that they can take bacteria out of the air using light in the actual ventilation system that kills bacteria. That's something the Democrats put in there specifically. And what do Republicans call it? A waste of fucking money.
And the result is that poor communities have less money to educate their children.
Nope. No, they don't. It's not a zero-sum game. They don't have less because other people have more. That's not how it works. And it shouldn't be how it works. It shouldn't be that even if it's less in an area because everything's cheaper, housing is cheaper, everything else is cheaper, so the price, yeah, again. fuck me. The whole point is Democrats as a party, and he keeps reading from the Democratic National Committee's guidance, is that that's why we want the Department of Education to be functional. That's why we want funding to all these schools to guarantee that people in low-income areas, places that don't have a view of the fucking lake or aren't driving distance to a beautiful piece of scenery, and therefore people will pay extra to live there, and those people who pay extra to live there will pay more to educate their kids, because that's how it fucking works, will not be denied a good education.
And rich communities have more money to educate their children.
Rich communities will always have more money to educate their children. Or, I guess if you think their parents can't get a job, the poor kids have more time with their parents that will teach them.
It's crazy. It means basically that the kids who have the greatest needs have the fewest resources.
Also, I guess there are no rich kids with learning disabilities. And also, again, as a Democrat, I think we all agree. Let me check in my chat. Maybe I'm wrong. Check me about this. Hey, kids, who amongst you is for the Department of Education functioning and guaranteeing that there's a baseline of funds for all public schools so that the minimum standards are exceeded? That when it comes to a public school, if it falls below a certain baseline, the federal government can come in and go, you got a leaky roof, you don't have a playing field, you don't have a library, you don't have enough materials, we will pick up the gap. Right? On a federal level. And then if people in their neighborhoods want to pay a little more local tax to take care of their schools, they've got every right to do it. Right? If you value education more than somebody else does, your kids are going to benefit from it. Right? That's just going to happen. There is no fucking way you're going to these rich people are going to tutor their kids. Well, tough shit. Okay, then everybody should get ChatGPT. We're fine. Then you got a tutor on call all the time. But the point is, he's taking the Democratic plan, and then he's going to rich areas, which by and large, in a bunch of these areas, vote Republican, and saying that because they pay more for these things and it's based on zip code, and Democrats have been trying to remedy that nationwide, that somehow we don't give a fuck. And it isn't just that it's a failed system or that we're trying and we're doing it wrong or anything. They're actively saying liberal hypocrisy is, look at this, is fueling American inequality. So the idea that all these blue states and blue areas are blue through and through, as opposed to leverage that way, average that way, or go that direction. And to the Chicago point, not only does the Chicago taxpayer pay for their local school as well, but the taxes paid in Chicagoland overall pay for all the schools in the southern part of the state. Because if you think there are impoverished areas in the Chicagoland area, which are highly densely populated and have a lot, even if people are making very little, there are a lot of people in that tax base, a lot of people working around there, and a lot of jobs in industry that make more money for that local place. Their money is also being sapped out to the rural communities in the southern part of the state that are much more like, Missouri, and treat education the same way. And you know what? Good. Because I think everybody in Chicago is fine with the fact that Southern Illinois their education system is completely kept afloat with Chicago tax dollars. But the idea that this dickhead and this other asshole are both going to shit on the alleged liberals in Chicago that somehow are like, fuck poor people, la-di-da, because they pay for everybody in the whole fucking state. It just, you can see why this is aggravating as fuck.
Same thing is happening in wealthy, liberal Connecticut, where the inequality in education opportunities is shameful, with some schools having huge budgets for their libraries and facilities, and others in the same state having to use duct tape to keep wind and snow out of their windows.
Yes, and apparently that became a story on the local news that was paid for earlier. And does anybody think that Connecticut is, well, here, let's see what their, should we see what their voting record is like? Let's see. Connecticut politics, Republican, Democrat. Let's see. Since 1992, often by double-digit margins. So there's a quarter, like a little under half the state votes Republican. Congressional represent all of Connecticut's seats in the House are currently held by Democrats. Again, this would not affect education spending in the state. The last Republican presidential nominee to win the state was George H.W. Bush in 1988. So in 1988, Bush won the state. So the idea that this is somehow fucking blue. You live there? Yeah, okay. So Linda, you'll understand what I mean. So the idea that the whole state is homogenously blue because the leadership, because the majority of the people vote blue, and that those schools that are in impoverished areas or more rural areas are equal to that is the issue. Okay, state legislature. While information on the current partisan breakdown isn't available in the historical trends suggest a Democratic majority. The governor is Ned Lamont, a Democrat who assumed in 2019. Generally considered a blue state with Democrat, both presidents, while specific details in the markup, they're not ready for that. Every seat in the House is held by a Democrat, with the last Republican having lost in 2008. The election marked the first time since the 1850s that no Republicans represented in Connecticut or any state in New England in the House. Now, okay, so this is the current state, and this is after this thing. Okay, so that changed presidential voting trends in, okay, how blue is it? Okay. Whoops, did that save it? No, I clicked on that and it downloaded the file. That's very weird. Political parties in Connecticut, party strength, Connecticut House Republicans, practically none. Okay, let's look up, how about this? Connecticut education funds, I guess. Try to do this. Let's see. Funded through a combination of local, state, and federal tax dollars, the state's education costs, ECS formula distributes state education funds to local and regional districts with a significant portion coming from property taxes. Additionally, federal programs like Title I provide financial support to low-income students. Property taxes make up the largest funding, again, 57.1% of the total. State funding comes from the state budget and accounts for 34.6% of the total, which would be the areas that voted for George H.W. Bush, I'm guessing. And then federal funds, including Title I grants, make up 8.2%. The ECS formula is now the state derives it. Okay, they receive federal grants on it. And then they have state programs, including the CHT, the Connecticut Higher Education Trust, a $529 college savings plan that helps families save for higher education, adult education grants, and special education grants. So how they fund education. So let's take a look at Connecticut, this terrible blue state that doesn't give a shit about poor people. Over $13.6 billion is spent in the state on K through 12 education in each year. The money that pays for this spending comes from three primary sources: local, state, federal tax dollars. Approximately 92% of Connecticut schools comes from state and local sources, with 57.1% coming from local property tax revenues and 34.6% coming from state resources. There you go. This is the local. This is again the zip code thing. This is where they make up the difference in federal and state. Okay. So, and again, they say nothing about the distribution. So let's say, what if locally you have a lot of tax dollars and you meet the demand? You don't get any more state or federal because you've met the baseline and you maybe exceed it. Right? So that comes from your zip code. But if you don't make it, it comes from state and federal stuff. And if it falls behind, that's because of lack of these two things, not because of that thing. All right. Now, local public schools, ECS grant goes into local funding and ECS funding. Okay. And this is how they have a little cartoon graphic. Isn't that wonderful? Okay. State charter schools. In fiscal year 2025, state charter school students will receive the ECS Foundation Plus 56.7% of their full weighted funding based on their individual learning needs. Okay, so they have a charter school system in Connecticut, local charter schools, and there's the funding looping back into it, and these lovely little buildings, and then there's CTES grants, and then the agri-science programs that teach people how to be farmers, and then there's open choice because they can pick what school they want to go to. When you go to high school, you can choose your district and all that kind of stuff. Regional education service centers. Okay, so funding formulas and student needs. All right. It seems to me that they prioritized education in the state of Connecticut, but I don't see a date. Okay, this is the important thing. I don't see a date on this. I don't see a specific reasoning for this other than this school is always duct taped together is what we're supposed to assume.
This is a real thing.
We need your help in establishing.
Black and Puerto Rican caucus hearing on issues concerning the Black and Latino communities. Connecticut News, I guess, 219, 19 or 10. We'll see what that is. Hold on.
Guidelines,
219.
procedures, and funding to address issues negatively impacting our students like extreme temperatures, mold, lead exposure, and poor water and air quality.
So yeah, Binya tells me...
By the way, if you'll all recall, Joe Biden's infrastructure bill passed funding to address that specifically. Just saying.
The states could change this. They could actually just collect all the real estate taxes and then equally distribute them. But if you...
No, they can't. No, they can't. It's not that simple. You can't just by state fiat, you can't just pass a law and say, we're going to collect all your state taxes and we're going to spread them out everywhere. Because everybody will go, why am I paying property taxes for places beyond the scope of my property?
Look at some of our...
And they would win in court, even in Connecticut.
Liberal strongholds, that is exactly what they are not doing.
Yeah, it looks like a cesspool.
Let me be clear about something. In blue...
Yes, let's be clear about something.
Progress is being made.
Yes, this is the yeah, but. Look, progress is being made in liberal strongholds, but not fast enough to compete with the fact that Republican districts, and especially wealthy Republican districts, are going backwards on fucking purpose. And if they can disenfranchise black and brown students actively and get away with it, they absolutely will.
Albeit slowly. For instance, a few weeks ago, California...
For instance...
...only passed a law that gets rid of single-family zoning. It's a small step in the right direction. And in many cases, blue states provide more and better public services. And historically...
In all cases. Treva saying, who is this guy? I don't know his name. He does videos like this online occasionally, and they're like explainer videos. And so I never really got into them before. This one showed up in my feed, and because they went off on Chicago, I was like, hang the fuck out. Having gone to school in Kentucky, where the dismissal of the worth of what students need on the regular throughout the entire state, this like anti-education attitude that seemingly every elected representative in the state had, versus what I experienced when I moved to Chicago, it was like a lightning bolt. It was incredible. And the fact that I was able to take public transportation from where I went to high school to Second City and take classes there, which would have been a fucking impossibility if I'd have wanted to take classes in Frankfurt proper. If I couldn't get there, if my sister's boyfriend who had a car wouldn't drive me into town with them and drop me the fuck off with no cell phone, no nothing, we'll hope we'll find you later, or my mom could take me in and drop me off like when she went to work or something like that, which was a long drive into the city, into town, for just that one thing. It was a major upheaval in our family to be able to do any of that shit. And in Chicago, it was all available to you in a way that I don't know that people that live in, that haven't grown up in a rural setting can even fucking grasp.
Have given better chances to low-income families to climb the economic ladder. But for some of these foundational democratic values of housing equality, progressive taxation, and education equality, Democrats don't actually...
Look at this motherfucker. Democrats don't actually fucking what? You're pointing to Republican voting districts in blue states to make anecdotal arguments about bullshit, while on a national level and on a state level, you increasingly have the very same people that you're shit talking voting to raise their taxes every single time for bond initiatives for education every time. Every fucking time.
Embody their values very well.
It's just a lie. Like, this is so fucking aggravating.
We're talking, once again, about a system that's been rigged.
Republicans today are to blame.
What we're talking about...
See that? Okay, so they cut those three things together, and the idea you're supposed to take away from those three snippets is that Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, and Elizabeth Warren are just liars. They don't care about these things. It's lip service, and they don't fucking do anything about it.
Is that blue states are the problem.
When is Hal going to go on these shows like PVD and Tim Pool? I need a lot more subscribers, and they're not going to take my channel seriously. So people have to subscribe. That's the only thing holding me back. And they're afraid to. Like, there's a couple of shows that I was invited on. What was it? Jesse Lee Peterson. That dude invited me on at one point, and I was like, no, pass. You're gross. But like a bunch, because he knows because I have clout in another industry, right? That's the other thing, is that they view me in this kind of category as like I'm an actor who whatever dabbles in this.
Blue states are where the
yeah, CSL, that's a true story. I got a direct invite from his fucking people. This was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago maybe now.
Crisis is located. Blue states are where the disparities in education funding are the most dramatic. Blue states are
No, they're not. And oh, by the way, the disparities, this way they could play with that. Okay, the disparities are dramatic because in blue states there are areas that spend so much on education. In red states, they don't give a fuck across the board. Rich areas or poor areas, they give a fuck about common education. They're against public education. So they'll undercut public funding because they want charter schools or private schools or religious schools in their area. So you've got rich places like Houston or Dallas or fucking Miami or places like that. And the Republican voters in those areas will vote against these things because they want their kids to go to a private school anyways, and fuck these poor kids at the local schools. This goes hand in hand with the fucking the idea that Epstein hit on some woman at some young girl at Mar-a-Lago, and that's why Trump, got pissed at him, and that's what broke them off. So apparently, it was okay for him and Ghislaine Maxwell to pick up these local schoolgirls, the ones that went to the public high school that he was mostly farming. They were completely fine with that. It only mattered. Thank you, Tobias. Oh my God. It only mattered when he went after the rich kids. Do you get it? The reason there's a disparity in blue states is because where people can spend more on schools, or they can sign up for a bond measure in their neighborhood to raise money for education in their local area, they will absolutely fucking do it. So it will always go higher. They'll spend on it like fucking rednecks will stockpile guns.
Places where tens of thousands of homeless people are living on the streets.
Okay, and again, why are there tens of thousands of homeless people living on the streets? Because in other places, they die. Because in Chicago, they die. Because in New York, they die. When the cold comes, they die. You want to know why there's not a big homeless problem in Denver? Because it's fucking gorgeous and weed is legal? I'll tell you why. Because they fucking die. The reason we have so many people homeless people in California is because they survive.
States are the places where economic inequality is increasing most quickly in this country.
Why is that? Also, by the way, since Elon Musk moved to Texas, I challenge this idea. But the idea is that you have got Silicon Valley, Microsoft, and these big companies die. The poor people die off. They don't survive to be a statistic in the first fucking place.
It is not a problem of not doing well enough. It is a situation where the blue states are the problem.
Listen to this shit. The blue states are the problem. The tax base of the entirety of the education system in the United States are the problem. Not the red states that drag on it and try to divert funds to religious schools or charter schools, undermine public education across the base. And by the way, I'm recording this show and I'll post it if it sometimes goes out because I don't know what the fuck is up. It's very weird. Trying to remedy it. I'll take a look at it tonight. I apologize, but I am recording it just in case I have to post it later. It may just be something that's going on, on the sites right now.
Affluent liberals tend to be really good at showing up to the marches and talking about how they love equality.
Listen to this motherfucker. He's calling you guys liars. He's saying you guys are assholes. All those marching people that pretend that's Johnny Harris, fuck Johnny Harris and his bullshit. What a hack bunch of shit. And the idea that the New York Times has suddenly gone bad when this nonsense has been around for, this video's been up for a couple of years is indicative of the problem. And this is, you want to tie some fucking lines, draw a direct line between Trump being back in office and propaganda in the so-called liberal media. This is it. Holy shit.
They're really good at putting signs in their lawns.
Fuck you, dude. They're really good at putting signs in their lawn. That's all you do. You fucking assholes walking around marching in your women's march and putting a sign in your yard. You don't really care about these things. What the fuck?
And all are welcome here. But by their actions,
No. By the actions of apparently the people in Palo Alto.
Actually saying is, yes, we believe in these ideals, just not in my backyard.
We are not living our values.
Okay, because you live a lie, we're not on the hook for it, asshole. For real. I don't even know what, the fucking cocktail parties this dickhead goes to being on the New York Times editorial board must be fucking ridiculous. But as people who are actually out there, if you were at the DNC like I was, if you've been in the hands-off marches like I have been, or you marched against the fucking Iraq war, all that kind of shit, like that, it didn't end there. We all voted our values. And so the idea that there are a bunch of fucking rich liberals showing up at all these meetings going, I don't know. Look, I like immigrants, but what are they doing here? Is just a bunch of shit.
Who live in blue states.
Yeah, see all these liars, these blue state pigs that just live there on the trough, just denying everybody resources, even though they vote for more resources for the poor and for schools every fucking time.
Who profess liberal values, you need to look in the mirror and need to understand that they are not taking the actions that are consistent with those values.
They vote for it every time. And your anecdotal bullshit about Palo Alto or why don't you just fucking tell me a story about California that starts in Irvine or Laguna Beach?
Not just incidentally, not just in small areas, but that some of the most important policy choices. We are denying people the opportunity to prosper and to thrive and to...
Sorry, we are denying people the opportunity to prosper and to thrive. Okay, asshole. What, is this section of Los Angeles, why are there so many homeless people in this particular area? Why there? Is it because the way the light bounces off the fucking buildings? Is it because the traffic is particularly low? Are these people just gathering because they like it or I don't know, the sidewalk tax is cheap? No, they gather there around Skid Row because that's where all the aid organizations that get state and city funding from are located. It isn't that they're just kicked out of other places. It's that there's a place to go. That is supplied by the generosity and the tax dollars of the people around there, and an insurmountable problem in many of their ways. That, by the way, there are a shit ton of people taking advantage of that are not homeless. They just don't want to live in a house. They're either fucking car squatters or young people or drug tourists, and there's a shit ton of them in LA, and none of them are homeless. They just don't get an apartment. They just want to live off the grid. But they want to live completely off the grid. They want to live off the tit of the grid and then act like they're fucking homesteaders and park their van in fucking Venice. That's not the same as being homeless. It just isn't. And they take advantage of those things. And that adds to these numbers that he's talking about. And even those people, even those bullshit artists, even those drug tourist fuckwads who come in and take advantage of the system that is set up for these people who clearly need it, I still want them to have it. Because the alternative of them going hungry is wrong. And just because they live outside the boundaries of society and they waver on their ability to manage rent or get their act together, or maybe they're looking for, they're following their path in life, whatever that is, there's an element of they should have some wiggle room to not die. And I'm okay with that. And the action of cutting those people off, saying that fraud, which it absolutely is, getting rid of that fraud is more important than guaranteeing that the people who need it have those funds and need it have that food, is fucking ridiculous. I'm not willing to sacrifice the needed aid that goes to homeless people in this area of Los Angeles specifically, all the NGOs, all the state funding that goes to protect those people, even just to get back at people who might take advantage of it, is not worth it. It should not cost the people that are genuinely homeless because there are fraudsters working on it. And this applies to how DOGE is handling things. You don't cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security because there's fraud. You get rid of the fraud and you leave everybody else the fuck alone. You don't use it as an excuse to cut funding everywhere, because that's what they're really doing. We put up with a certain amount of human wiggle room, fraud and bullshit and illegality, because to tamp down on it too hard would affect too many innocent people. That's why we put up with it. Not because we like it, not because we're okay with it, but because if you go after it too hard, you make the people on the fringes have to work too hard to get the resources they need, and it will kill them. That's why you leave wiggle room in it. That's why there's waste in this situation. Because the alternative means that people who need this support, need this help, don't get it. So we got to let some shit slide, because the alternative means that it cuts their lives short. And this motherfucker thinks that all you guys who've been trying to vote for affordable housing, vote for bond measures that would fix this, vote for education funding across the board, wanted the existence of the Department of Education to expand the entire time it's been out, raise teachers' wages, make sure that schools, I mean, how many times have you had a conversation in the last 2 decades about how teachers have to bring, materials for their students from home? You think Republicans, by and large, have give a shit about any of this stuff? I only have those conversations with Democrats, and I only see Democrats voting for the funding that eliminates that problem.
Build better lives, and it is happening in places where Democrats control the levers of policy.
Okay, first of all, asshole, you live in a Manhattan apartment, apparently. Unless he's in Connecticut or some shit. You work on a laptop, but you have another keyboard. Why is that? Just ergonomic? You can't write on your laptop keyboard, you need a second keyboard? I mean, you could give that keyboard to a student. Maybe they use a less ergonomic keyboard at their school, like an old one, and this would be better for them, and you've already got one built into your laptop. How fucking dare you? Until it comes back. Are we back up? Are we around? It says I'm still streaming. Until it comes back. Are we back up? Are we around? It says I'm still streaming, so I'm just going to pretend I am. Hello? Hello, hello? Yeah, I mean, my settings on here, it seems to be like, okay, backup stream, going to Add a backup. If your primary stream stops, restream will automatically switch to the backup to keep your stream going. I think that we might need that eventually. Are we back up though? We're good? Okay. So I think you guys can see why I get, let me see if I have to reload this page so that you guys will come back in. I think it will start again. There we go. You can see why I get mad about this because, like I said, and I don't know how much you saw this, so pardon me if I repeat myself, but maggots aren't going to use that particular video as a weapon because they ultimately don't give a shit. They you know, like, it'll be a liberal tears thing at best or some sort of, that's the bleeding heart liberal thing that they'll use as a weapon on it, but I don't think they'll go anywhere near it because they don't have to. Because the end result of that Johnny Harris Apple bomb video that the New York Times put up is an attack from the left on Democrats as if these two guys give a shit. And they don't. That entire piece is it is to suppress the Democratic vote. It is propaganda. It was designed for that very reason. The last thing you heard was, no, it's kind of appropriate. So, obviously, that shit makes me livid. Because again, it doesn't really impact stuff if, you know, if maggots say this kind of stuff. Right? It doesn't really, you know, if they say the same thing, it doesn't weaponize. But when, yes, TYT in the New York Times and this NYT, TYT, what's the fucking difference at this point? The goal of that video, the purpose of that video is to suppress the desire of Democrats to vote, to go, it doesn't really matter. Nobody's for anything. This is bullshit. I don't really care. I don't even know who I'm voting for. Maybe there's something to this Trump guy, blah, blah, blah. That's the goal of that video, 100%. Because by every measure, anytime there's advances in public education in the United States, Democrats are behind it. Every single time. And if there's a cut, Republicans. That the only affordable housing moves will come from Democrats. Zero affordable housing moves will come from Republicans, period. It's not like, well, 49, 51. It's 100-0. Oh, audio's glitchy. So weird. Check. Okay, I think I have to do a full restart after this. I'll stop at this video since I'm way over anyways, which I've been doing lately. I gotta say, these shows have been flying by, even with the tech issues that I'm running into. And I might be back up after this. I think I kind of have to. But, yeah, I'm gonna be annoyed. And I might be back up. Yeah, I'm gonna be annoyed by this whole thing. I just know it. It's the system. The system is against me. I blame the New York Times. Audio's fine on that? I'll be back. I'll be back after this messages from the and this type of things and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that you do. Son of a bitch. I'm working way too hard for way too little. Venmo me. Super chats. Always welcome. I hope I don't have to get a new computer, but I think we're okay. I think we're going to be fine. Look at that. The spaceship froze. There we go. The credits are being a dick. Yeah, I definitely need